So in this video, I want to show you how to, using JavaScript and the OpenLayers library, JavaScript library, connect to a OGC web mapping service and get a basic map up. We're going to set some rules for ourselves in that we can't use a bundler because that could effectively change the way you write JavaScript code, and the code you would write technically couldn't run in the browser, possibly without adjustment. Also, we're not going to be using the EMS ECMA module system, so we can't say import. So how do we do it, right? In that, I've got some starter files, and this is basically the OpenLayers libraries. So I'm just going to bring that across here quick. So I'm going to drop these in. So this is OpenLayers in that. So I'm just going to grab all these. Got some snippets in case the demo goes off the rails in that. I'm going to drop in there. And in this case, copy folder, really important. This is our basic OpenLayers. I'm also not going to add any directory structures like public and move the files around. So the first thing I need to do is get to a terminal and use npm to initialize this directory because I need a backend server to test against. So I am going to need a few bits from Node. Always check your Node version. This really just tells me whether I have Node. If I get a number back, I got Node. npm init -- yes. Wait for that to return. Not sure why it takes this long on this one, but it does. And then we should getting close. Do I want to do my start script yet? No. So I'm going to go npm install HTTP server. So I have a server to test against because I don't want to deploy this in the cloud for testing. I just want to test all locally. We get a better web experience. Okay, so that's almost done. Okay, so I'm going to go up here in my package JSON and add a start script. So usually line 7 if it's fresh, comma, pick start off the list, HTTP. If it doesn't pop down, control space bar. So it went over to Node modules and found it. -c -1 -- cores. So that should be good to go. We could fire it up. We'll just get a directory listing here. We'll put a couple more files in just to get things happening. Now, what am I going to need? Index page, main.js, and a cascading style sheet probably. So I'll make a new file. So I'll make main. I'll make an index.html. And I'll make a cascading style sheet, main.css. Okay, so in here, we're going to have a selector. Got to make sure the names matches, and this selector would match based on ID of the element in HTML, map ID, and I'll just pick height and make it 400 pixels. Width will be 100% of the page. Yeah, percent, that one there should work. Okay, so our cascading style sheet's done, we hope. Main.js, I'm going to do a little console. Log inside main.js just to prove that we get there. And I'm going to need an index page to start. So pick the template, good to go. I don't like those. So demo OL, put in a little H3, demo OpenLayers. No bundler, no EMS. Okay. I will need a div for the map. Its ID should equal, yeah, it doesn't pick anything up, so it should equal map ID. So you need that name to match the one you have in the cascading style sheet. So that's where something could go wrong if there's a slight typo, and it is case sensitive. And then I just need to bring the script in with a source, and it's going to be main.js. So this is the closest you can get to importing, or the concept of importing in that. Because my main.js, if it follows the order of the file, I do want my OpenLayers loaded first. So up in the head, I will mention OpenLayers. I also need to link in the style sheets. And so mine will be main. And I'll actually have it loaded last. I'll open the link in the OpenLayers one. Nope. Let's see. SS. Yeah. So bring in the JavaScript, bring in the style sheets, bring in my style sheet, then bring in my script last. So hopefully all the OpenLayers stuff will be loaded. So I do have some snippets to get us started. I'm going to forego the head and the block right now and just get the globals, and we'll grab that. So inside main, we're going to have some globals. One thing is I should actually test this. So before I add that code, I'll come back and do that. I'm going to start up the server, and then we'll slide it across to see if we can actually see my index page, and we can see the message in the console that we got inside main.js. Make sure all that plumbing is working before we start adding code. So we do want to make sure that part's working. It's looking pretty close there. Yeah, it's up and running. So I'm going to bring it across. So I'll bring it across, demo OpenLayers, no bundler, no EMS. I'll change the title. We'll do an inspect. We're just looking at the console to see, did it actually, it says inside main.js. So it's complaining about the fave icon, not worried about that right now. In that. So I might tweak my title just a bit. Yes, we'll go proper case on this. There. So we want to get in here and add those globals that we're talking about. So we're going to go to this web service. These style of web services can have many layers. We have to say which layer we want. Our map is going to have an initial point to center the map on. Otherwise, it'll default to 0, 0 over in the Gulf of Guinea. And then we have our map ID that seems to be set up right. We have a zoom level. In other libraries, is called LOD, level of detail in that. Here, they call it zoom. So that's enough to get us started. And the way it works if you think of an OpenLayers map, it has many layers, and a layer has a source, right? And the map needs a view to know where to look. Think of it as a big map, and it's a little box you're sliding over it, looking at different parts of this big map. So rather get all those pieces together. So a map needs a view. A map also needs layers. Layers need sources. About 4 things we got to make in that. And so what we can do is get started making the source. So I'm going to use a combination of a little bit of like JavaScript and JSON, but not the whole thing done in JSON. And that more of a compromise. So I'm going to define a source. So that's my variable. I'm going to make a new OpenLayers dot. So this style of OL dot assumes that you've already imported the code like with a script tag somewhere in that. And so we'll go source. What kind of source do we want to make? We want to make a tile web mapping service because we're going to an OGC web mapping service here. Now, I'll put my parentheses in, and then the JSON, I want to send it, and this is almost like doing key value arguments in Python quargs. I got to send it a URL, and I like to quote my keys. You don't have to, just practice so I don't get confused. The URL is set to this URL above, comma. I need to turn cross origin kind of on or allow it. And it is going to be anonymous. And I also need parameters for it because the service can have many layers. Like, which one do you want, or do you want a bunch of them? So params, I should quote it just to stay consistent. And that needs to be colon. It itself takes a little JSON dictionary. which layers? And the layers I want are the one I defined above. I called it layer here. I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to actually change this to, what do I want to change it to? Layer WMS, I think. Right? Yeah. So I'll call it here layer WMS. Because I'm going to have something called a layer later. And that, I don't want them to collide. So that's the source. This says, although you're a web mapping service, I'm going to do client-side tiling. And so a web mapping service like this typically makes one big image and sends it to you. What you're saying is, yeah, make that one big image dynamically, but chop it up into tiles. I think by default they're 256 by 256 tiles in this case. In that, so I'm going to make a tiled layer in that. So I'm taking an untiled source, tile it on the fly so that the data can kind of be streamed to me. Now I'm going to make my thing called layer, and I will make a new ol.layer.tile layer. I'll send it a little bit of JSON, and the source will be the one I just made above. There. So I like to distinguish, this is the key source versus the variable source that I made above, and that's what I'm doing. Now, one thing the map likes to have, you just don't send it one layer, you always send it an array of layers. Like, here's all my layers. So I'll quickly create a variable called layers, and it will be an array, but right now there's only one layer in it, the one I just made. Should be okay. Just in case, I'm going to put my semicolons in on the end of these, in case I'm getting an issue. Layer, no, found it. Okay, so it's happier. Now we have to make a view in that, and so again, you can put this all in one big JSON, but sometimes it's better to see the different pieces. I need a view, and it's going to be equal to a new OpenLayers capital view, because it's an object, and send it some key value pairs. And so this will be, it needs to have a center, American spelling, and that's going to be the point I have here. And missing any commas? I'm just checking other ones. No, looking good so far. Zoom. Oop. Zoom. I'll just go. Do I have a level detail set? I do. Zoom lot. So there we go. That's looking not bad. So when you make a map, you need a view, you need some layers, and you need a target typically in that. So we'll make a new map. And here, I'm not going to say let var or const. What'll happen then is map will become a variable that's in the global space up in the main document, which might be something you want if you need to interact with the map later. So map is equal to a new OpenLayers.map. And when you make a map, you need at least 3 things. And that will be what layers do you want in the map. So, and we'll set that equal to our layers array we made earlier. What's the view? Like, where are you looking? And that's the view I just made called view. And what is the target? And the target would be some element, the ID typically of some HTML element, which I believe I set to element ID here. I think you don't even need to find it. It'll go find it for you. Element ID. Okay. And I'll put a semicolon in here just to clean this up. There. So I need a source, right? A big thing on the source would be the big long URL and what layers you want out of it. Then you make a layer based on that source. Organize the layers into an array because maybe you have a couple of layers that you want to make here. You need to have somewhere to look. So think of, you have a big map, but you have this little rectangular box that you're sliding across it, looking at different parts of the map because you don't want to look at the whole map all at once. So you need a center point and a zoom level. And when you make a map has some layers. The map needs to be looking somewhere, and it needs to put that map somewhere on the page in that. So the big test, will this work? So I'm going to bring a tab over and we will go to localhost. So it looks like we have no maps. We probably have an error. So right click, go inspect. We'll slide the console across. We do have a error there, and it's saying it's on line 22. So I probably have a small typo. If it's not a case issue, well, we'll try to figure it out. And so view. I didn't go new on that one. Well, that would cause a problem. So new. And because it's not a function, it's a class. And so let's go down here and see if we can refresh this. Oh, error's gone away. Oh, got the controls and the map's coming in. So again, this is a quick demo of how to get an OGC web mapping service displayed in OpenLayers, but without using a bundling tool and without using ECMA module system with the import command. That's all for now.